I'm not an Olympian. I haven't been to the Olympics. Because what happened instead is that one by one, I just got too old for all the sports. And I think I've still got shooting. I think I could. Hi, I'm Tangey. My book is Music Camp, published by University of Queensland Press, and it's coming out in June this year. Music Camp is a middle grade book, so I think of it for being kids upper primary school, start of secondary school maybe. And it's about two girls going on music camp, and they've both got a lot of ambitions and hopes for the camp, but it keeps raining and maybe those hopes and dreams might not all come to fruition, which is what happens in a lot of my books, is about unexpected things happening and challenges happening. They're quite different girls. So one of them comes from a kind of very classically, musically trained family. Her father was a famous clarinetist and that was his career. And she's grieving because her father's died, and music camp is kind of an escape for her to get and to be with people who are like her, who love music as much as her. But it's that kind of musical world, and she's very comfortable in that. And the other character, Miley, is very different, comes from a family that has had a fair few more struggles. She's living in a caravan park at the moment because her home was lost in a flood, and it's just her and her mum. And she's had a really inspirational music teacher who's introduced her to the recorder, that wonderful instrument that so many of us played in primary school and was not always very highly respected. But she knows that the recorder is a serious classical musical instrument, and she wants to prove to the world that the recorder is serious, and that's her mission in life. And so she's going to music camp with that goal. All of my books for middle grade kids have been about things that I was interested in or did when I was at school, but they're all things that I didn't really go on with for various reasons, usually a lack of talent, sometimes a lack of interest. So with my first book, my first middle grade book was about a girl who loved horses, and she really, really wanted to have a pony, and she'd never really met a horse, but she just loved them. And that was me in primary school. I loved horses because I read Penny Pollard's diary, and I just was Penny Pollard. And then I met a horse, and I found out that I'm scared of horses. And then my second middle grade book, As Fast as I Can, was about a girl who was just absolutely convinced that she was going to be an Olympian because she'd watched the Olympics, and she didn't know what sport she was going to be good at, but she just knew she was going to go to the Olympics. And that was me. That's what I did. And instead of I'm not an Olympian. I haven't been to the Olympics. Because what happened instead is that one by one, I just got too old for all the sports. And I think I've still got shooting. I think I could. So then music is another thing that I did a lot of when I was a kid. And it was probably the way that kids, particularly in my area, if you were interested in creative things, that was a thing that you could do. There weren't that many opportunities for theatre or, other. But music was a thing that you could get involved in. And so I did. And I was there were a lot of really talented musicians in my group, and I just wasn't really one of them, but I felt I wanted to be in the group, and it was important to me to be good at music, even though I wasn't really. And so I feel like these three books kind of go together as being the three kind of passions of my youth that were not followed through into my adulthood. When I'm writing at nothing, I don't think about them much at all. I think about what I liked at that age. I think about what I was like, and I think about what I think kids would be thinking and doing, and then maybe exaggerating that a bit or making it a bit more of a narrative. But I'm not trying to push a message, or I'm also not thinking, I can't say that because that would be too confronting for them. I can't. Afterwards, when other people get involved, then I do have to think about that and take that on board a little bit. Particularly with music camp, the ending was perhaps a little bleaker than, ultimately you don't want kids to feel bad after they've read your book. So I think other people help me think of that more. No, I'm not. No, I work as a librarian as well. And I've also got 3 kids, so I kind of mix it all together. With writing, because since I had children, my time to do it has become more and more limited. So I have just had to get comfortable with squeezing it into little times that I get. So sometimes before the kids go to school, I'll do an hour when my partner's still at home, and I'll go to a cafe even and just do an hour, come back. Sometimes I get like a longer period if they're all at school and everything's fine, but I can't really rely on that, particularly not at the moment. So yeah, just when I get a chance, and I'm actually maybe I'll come back to this at some point in my life, but the idea of when I hear about people going on a writer's retreat and like spending a whole week writing or something, it horrifies me. I can't imagine it. Yes, I'm like, oh, surely 45 minutes is enough. What do you do to relax? I am not a good relaxer. So I run and then I feel relaxed afterwards. So that is probably the time when I can feel relaxed, is if I go for a run and then I am physically relaxed, and then I've noticed I do much better play with my children if I've just been for a run, because I'll sit down, I'll just be totally in the game, not thinking of 50 other things around the house. The role of writers in 2025. I think a lot of writers are very privileged people, particularly authors, published authors. I think I know we don't make a lot of money, but possibly because of that, I think a lot of the people who are able to do it and become an author in the first place have our privilege, because we've got usually some kind of family help or a lot of support around us that lets us do it. That's not ideal. That's not the way I think. I think more people should have the opportunity to be creative, but I do think a lot of authors are privileged, and I think we should all be using it, and we should all be, whether it's on brand for you, whether it matches your style of writing or the type of thing that you like to write about, you should be speaking up about things that are happening in the world, because it's such a serious time. And I think if you're not, I mean, everyone has different capacities, so I never want to be critical of an individual, like, oh, everyone's got different stuff going on in their life, but the idea that, oh, well, we should just create beautiful things for the world, I just don't think that's not enough at this point. That is just making the circus, and we need to be doing more than that. I like reading middle grade. That's one of the reasons why I write it. I think my first 2 books were young adult, and I mean, that was more about possibly just because of the age of the characters that I started writing about. And I'm not saying I would never write another young adult, but it's a publishing category that I didn't feel as much affinity with, because I didn't read it as a teenager because I was a snob, and I thought I was too good for it, and I read adult books, and I read Wild Swans. Anyway, and then it was only as an adult I went back and read some of the books that I was like, that book, my friends are reading that and it's bad. And I read it, I was like, oh, this is a really good book. So it was really unfair to it, but I didn't have that connect. Whereas middle grade, I read a lot of middle grade, and I remember all those books really fondly, and they were very formative for me, and they taught me about the world, and they probably taught me some of my values and things that I want to do in the world. So to be going back and writing that and seeing that kids are having that same relationship with my book sometimes is very special, and I really, really like that. I like nonfiction. So at the moment I'm reading a book about Agatha Christie's poisons in her books. And so it's got a bit of chemistry in it, and it's got a bit of, history of how poisons were used, and it's got a bit of analysis of Agatha Christie's work, and that sort of thing I love that kind of writing as well. And then I like, I'll read the hot books when I get a chance. I read The Bee Sting recently. I thought that was so good. I really liked Anne of Green Gables. which everybody talks about how much they loved Anne of Green Gables. I just read it to my daughter and she liked it too, which was so exciting. And to be honest, it's a lot about Gilbert. That was the first time I read a book where I had a crush on one of the characters, and that was it's just so exciting to go, oh, I could see his name's down there at the bottom of the page. We're getting to it. But, you know, obviously the character of Anne was just so, yeah, because she's got a temper and I related to that, and she, you know, is a bit over the top. And so I could kind of relate to it. But then the book that the series that sort of I probably took on too personally was Robin Klein's Penny Pollard's Diaries, which I read, and because her name's Penny and my name's Penny, so, you know, we're the same person. So I started a diary. I loved horses. I hated pink. I didn't want to be girly. I wanted to be a tomboy, all that sort of thing. Basically, it's hard to tell whether I felt that way anyway or whether it was just a book that made me. It was all mingled in together. So I loved those books, and Robin Klein was obviously a contemporary author, and yeah, the books were describing things that were like my school. I think they played the recorder at a nursing home at the start. It was all things that I could much more relate to. And yeah, I think I wrote a letter. I did write a letter to Robin Klein once and asked her some questions, and she wrote back, and I've still got and she did this great thing where she sent back my letter and wrote on it, which is really great for me because I've then got what I wrote and her response to me. She must have done that all the time. It was a very thoughtful way of doing it. So I have written an adult book, which is A Cozy Crime, about a mother who is on maternity leave and she's got a little baby and someone dies at the library. It's traditional. And so, yeah, that's going to be published next year. So that's very different and a bit of fun. Like, I think of it as a bit less serious than the kids' writing. It's a bit less at stake. I shouldn't say that. Because you're meant to be like, oh, now I'm a proper writer because I'm writing for adults, but I don't feel that way at all. Thank you for having me.